President Trump arrived in Beijing for his highly anticipated summit with China's Xi Jinping. Accompanying the president are several of the most high-profile business and tech CEOs, some of which traveled with him on Air Force One. Tesla's Elon Musk, Nvidia's Jensen Huang, and Apple's Tim Cook lead the tech delegation. They oversee 3 of the top 10 most valuable companies in the world. Now, in addition to trade, artificial intelligence will be on the agenda as the AI race between the two countries accelerates. So joining us now is Chris McGuire. He is a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. Chris, great to see you again. The combined net worth of these executives accompanying the president is approaching $1 trillion. And in a social media post, the president said he plans to ask President Xi to, quote, open up China so that these brilliant people can work their magic, his words, and help bring the People's Republic to an even higher level. So what do you make of this group coming with the president on this trip?
Yeah, it's a significant group, and I think what's really significant is that the message regarding de-risking from China is very fundamentally different than what the administration or either of the past 2 administrations have been promoting really since about 2018, 2019. The message generally from government to business is you need to reduce your China-related risk. You need to move supply chains out of China. Not that you can't do any business with China, but generally that we have to be conscious of like where we do business and where we don't. And generally, we prefer you to have it in kind of allied and partner countries than in China. The message that President Trump is sending and sent on social media last night was actually that we want to encourage these companies to do more in China. It is surprising. We'll see what actually comes of it. I think it's very clear that it's a show of kind of U.S. business prowess. It's, typical, I think, in President Trump's, way of deal making. He wants to kind of bring these titans of industry and as a show of strength. Some of these very much could want to do more business in China, but it's not actually clear if the Chinese government will open up to them. I think others produce products that we likely don't want to ship to China. So I think it's a complicated situation. Ultimately, these CEOs are not meeting with President Xi, is my understanding. So I think it's more likely to be a show of force than a signal on policy or plans on particular deals. But it is a very stark and different message than presidents have sent on the past vis-a-vis China for about the last 10 years.
And this was interesting. One last-minute ad was NVIDIA's Jensen Huang. I want to remind our viewers, NVIDIA's chips are used for training AI models, but are restricted in China. China has actually sought to build its own chips. So can you explain this point of contention over these chips and how it impacts the AI race between these two countries?
Certainly. AI chips are the lifeblood of AI models. The chips we're talking about are not the kind of little chips people think about in your phone. These are the most powerful chips in the world. They're very large. The more you use of them to train a model, basically, the better that it will be. It's very important is that U.S. chips are far better than Chinese chips and also produced in far higher quantity. The best U.S. chips are about 8 times better than the best Chinese chips. And also NVIDIA makes about 10 times as many of them compared to their competitors. So that's about an 80x difference. That fact is why the United States has export controlled these chips. Also, not to mention that actually U.S. companies are all trying to get as many of these chips as they can, so there's a shortage here. So the U.S. has used this to its advantage by imposing export controls on advanced chips in order to slow down China's AI progress. And this has generally worked. This is why the United States has an 8-month lead in AI. Our companies have access to far more AI computing power than the Chinese do, and therefore we're able to make better models. In January, though, President Trump loosened the controls on AI chips and permitted the sale of certain very powerful chips to China. The Chinese government has not yet approved all of these sales. It has to be a 2-part process. It's not exactly clear where all those are hung up. I'm sure that Jensen Huang wants to be able to sell to China and wants to get those unlocked. We'll see if that actually comes out of the visit. This is going to be a very contentious issue, both within the administration and also with Capitol Hill if it actually does go forward.
Taiwan also expected to be a big topic of discussion on this trip to China. Reminder, Taiwan broke away from China during a civil war in the 1940s. China maintains the island is still part of its country. President Trump suggested the big reason that China has not taken over the island is that Taiwan has a prized semiconductor industry which makes computer chips that power everything from smartphones to satellites. So can you explain Taiwan's influence in the AI industry here in the U.S. and how it relates to this conflict?
Certainly. So Taiwan could not be more critical to the AI industry. About 100% of AI chips are made in Taiwan. A very small share are made outside, but it's insignificant. On top of that, about 90% of all advanced chips are made in Taiwan. So this includes smartphone chips, laptop chips, even chips in your cars. Without Taiwanese chips, it is difficult to overstate the impact on the global economy and what would happen if those fabs were to go offline. The stock of every single major U.S. technology company would crater overnight. AI progress would grind to zero. Most American consumers would not be able to buy a new car, a new smartphone, a new laptop for likely many years. To reconstitute the fabs and the technology that they have built there and the facilities that they've built there, it would take hundreds of billions of dollars, if not trillions of dollars, and probably at least 4 or 5 years at an absolute minimum going at a breakneck pace. This is the most critical supply chain in the world. I think Secretary Bessent has actually recognized that. And it's the single biggest choke point. I don't think that I don't agree with President Trump's assertion that that's the reason that China hasn't acted on Taiwan. I think China looks at Taiwan through a much more historical lens and is viewing it and looks at it through the idea of capabilities and what is their ability to defend themselves and the credibility of commitments. But nonetheless, when the United States looks at Taiwan, this is an incredibly important factor, and the impact of those fabs going offline would be absolutely calamitous.
Chris McGuire, thank you so much. Always great to see you.
Thanks again.